walk out on that field today, ask yourself this question. What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Let's go! We made it! We made it! We made it! We made it! And let's go to the house! And let's go to the house! When I step on the field, I send one message. And this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. Football is getting hit. That's it. It's gonna be football now. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Let's hunt now. Let's hunt now. Let's go. Let's hunt. We made it. And let's go to the house. And let's go to the house. We're talking about the Jets like we're talking about the Saints. You know, all this, how like we the Miami Heat of football. Yap, 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 yap. The bottom line is you got to buckle up your chin strap. It's embarrassing. Yap, 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 yap. Don't disrespect the game like that. There's too much crying from them. He's a man. They can be hit just like us. He's a man. You already make the big money. He's a man. Don't cry when you step on the field, man. That's war out there. When I step on the field, I send one message. This is what it feels like. Oh, my bad, my bad. Your bad don't work in my world. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We made it. And let's go to the house. And let's go to the house. It's a wrap. Game over.
Game is not over. It's the Houston Roundball Review Takeover. That's what it is here on the lunch break on Thursdays. How's everyone doing out there? I am Chris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, and joining me is my brothers from Folks Talking Sports, Willie Gibson in Ohio. How are you, sir?
Doing fantastic, Chris. How are you?
Doing great. And Andy Yanez of Gallery Sports, Paul Samajama, etc., etc. How are you, sir?
I personally am doing good. It's excited. It's April 27th, 2023, or otherwise known as the first day of the NFL draft day here, and we're excited. I'm actually going to be covering the draft for Gallery Sports, the draft party for the Houston Texans. So that will be interesting. Whoever gets called number 2 overall, I cannot wait for tonight.
And let's get right into it, because this edition of the lunch break, Houston Roundball Review Takeover, will be pretty much football discussion, football dominant. The NFL draft, first round of the 2023 NFL draft. Andy Yanez, Willie Gibson, we discussed it along with our man A.D. Moore on Sunday's episode of Folks Talking Sports. Go to YouTube, Houston Roundball Review, if you haven't already seen it. And it should be on the BS3 network as well on Roku. But a lot of the discussion on Sunday, same thing today. Number 2. What will the Texans do? Andy, Will, I've read from 3 different folks. All 3 of them, or none of the 3, have the Texans selecting a quarterback with the second pick in this draft. What say you first, Willie Gibson?
You know, I thought about it right before we came on. Nick Caserio is the GM in Houston, right?
Yep.
Okay. And where does he come from? Where was his previous stop before?
New England.
Okay. So the Belichick tree. Does Bill Belichick release any information prior to?
Nope.
So I say that to say, and I thought about it right before we came on. This, I think you mentioned it, the smoke screen of all smoke screens, or the biggest smoke screen in history. I mean, he's from the Belichick tree. He's not going to tell you what he's going to do. So he's probably out there. I'm not saying he's planning this information, but he's quite sure not doing anything to refute it. And so while people are talking, he's in the lab making it happen. And at 2, I think he's going to shock the world, not himself and not the inner circle, because I'm sure they know. But I just think this is all it's lion season. 2 weeks before the draft, don't believe anything that you hear. Period.
Andy, do you agree with that? That logic?
I definitely agree from that line of thinking, especially with so much noise, so much certainty, and it definitely is lion season. Just look at how Will Levis skyrocketed in the quote unquote favorites because there was a rumor that he had told his family that he was told he was going to go number one by the Panthers. Like at this point, it's all speculation. It's all trying to create some buzz. Like literally before I hopped on the air, I literally just saw a report that said this from Jeremy Fowler on ESPN. While Bryce Young is projected to go number one, or most have him to go number one to the Panthers were really intrigued by Anthony Richardson. So, like, we don't know. You don't know what you don't know. We're not going to know what the Texans are thinking until that number 2 overall pick gets made. If it's not a quarterback, and more specifically, if it's not CJ Stroud or I'd be curious to see what their opinions are if it's Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. The fans will boo. They want a quarterback. And if it is a quarterback, then there's going to be a lot of pressure from outside of the organization to make sure that he's the right quarterback. Or for all we know, the Panthers could surprise all of us and take someone else not named Bryce Young. So we shall see. We shall see. But it's that time of the year, 7 p.m. Central Time is when everything begins.
Okay, well, I'm going to put it out there for you guys to debate and discuss. Todd McShay with the second pick. Tyree Wilson, Texans. Mel Kiper with the second pick. Will Anderson to the Texans. Debate, discuss.
I don't think they're going number 2 or defensive number 2 because of what Andy just said. They need a quarterback. Period. The Texans need a quarterback. They took the name escapes me right now, and I don't want to say what. See exactly, Davis Mills, and he's that was totally not made up. I literally his name escaped me at that moment, but he's not, yeah, he's not he clearly is not the answer. Now,
and he was a third round pick.
I'm not so much stuck on that because Russell Wilson was a third round pick, and so that he just wasn't productive. He hasn't been productive. He led the league in interceptions, or tied for the league in interceptions, if I remember right. So they clearly need a quarterback, and for them to, the pundits, if you will, to go and say they're going to take the top defensive player in the draft, I think is irresponsible. And that 12, that quarterback is not going to be there. I mean, they have the pick at 12. So do you want perhaps the second best quarterback at 2, and then maybe get the, I don't know, 4th best defensive player at 12? Or do you want to get the top defensive player in the draft at 2 and potentially get the 4th or 5th best quarterback at 12?
Andy, what do you say?
No, from the outside, from a logical thinking rationale, you expect Houston to take a quarterback, and that's the biggest need. Regardless of what Carolina does, they're going to have their pick of the litter, whoever they feel is, assuming the Carolina takes a quarterback, whoever is the number 2 quarterback in the draft. It certainly, for the past 2 weeks, it doesn't seem like it's trending that way. It seems like they're going to take anyone beside the quarterback because it seems like a foregone conclusion that Bryce Young is going to be taking number 1 with Carolina. But again, it just goes back to no one knows, and that's what makes it so exciting. For all we know, I think if they wind up not taking a quarterback, the Texans could end up trading that number 2 pick. Who knows? There's so many different options. There's so many different possibilities. And at the end of the day, once it becomes official, regardless of who they take, Nick Caserio is on the clock because the Indianapolis Colts are sitting right there at number 4. There's rumors that Tennessee could jump up for that Arizona Cardinals pick, take number 3. And if CJ Stroud or whichever of the quarterbacks are still available at number 4, the Colts are going to take whoever's left. And if it's CJ Stroud and the Texans pass on him, they better hope that he doesn't turn out to be the next great quarterback for the Colts, whether it be Andrew Luck or even going back all the way to Peyton Manning, because then that's going to be a mistake that Houston will not only regret, but they'll be getting torched by it firsthand season after season for years to come.
Hey, Chris, are we doing the guarantee? I know we do the guarantee on Sundays. Are we doing it today?
Not here because I don't believe I have that function. But hold
right.
that thought
All right.
because letting everybody know we're going to take a quick break and come back as I'm going to toss out some more what ifs and all that kind of stuff here. But you're watching the Houston Roundball Review Takeover on the lunch break. It used to be Throwback Thursday, but it's now the Houston Roundball Review Takeover on the lunch break, powered by JM&E. Catch it on the BS3 network on Roku. The BS3 network, changing the way you watch TV. If you don't have BS3, go to BS3 network, and we will be right back in about 90 seconds.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
And we are back to another edition of the lunch break here on Thursdays, the Houston Roundball Review Takeover on Thursdays on the lunch break, powered by JM&E on Roku, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, a lot of those platforms. And as you see, joining us now is Kim Y. Davis from Chalk Talk. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Happy draft day.
Thank you very much. And Kim, we're going to get your thoughts on it. The Texans at 2. What are they going to do? We're hearing smoke screens. Are they smoke screens that they will not draft a quarterback at 2 and go in a different direction? Your thoughts?
So I've said this on at least a dozen shows over the past week to 10 days. I have absolutely no idea. That's honest. I don't think any of us know. If you want to know what I think they should do, I think that they absolutely should get a quarterback, right? I understand the idea about getting the edge rusher, and there's some good defensive guys in the draft, but there's not a Bruce Smith in this draft, right? There's just not, in my opinion. And this team needs a quarterback. So to answer your question, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. They sent out this really cryptic tweet earlier this week that all of us are like, what is that to say during draft week? It was about failures of necessity. And so I don't know what's happening on Kirby, guys. We'll know better tonight. And so I am anxious to see which direction they go. But I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of different things, but no one really knows. And the people who run personnel departments around the league that I talk to, none of them have actually talked to the Texans. There's a lot of thoughts about which way they might go. So it's a lot of uncertainty. And I think it shouldn't be that much. I mean, you don't want to tip your hand. You don't have to tell people who you're drafting, but there should be no question that they're going to get a quarterback, in my opinion.
Okay, for all three of you, the Texans have the 12th pick, so they could get their quarterback at 12. Your thoughts on that?
No. You need a quarterback that you can start building around. And so I've heard a lot of talk about Anthony Richardson, who I like a lot. He's got the most upside in this draft. He's just a physical beast, and he seems hungry and he's smart, and he's definitely a project. And while I'm super excited about DeMeco Ryans being the head coach of this team, I'm not certain about the infrastructure yet because we haven't seen what they're going to do. Anthony Richardson needs to go to the right place with the right infrastructure, with the right, a system in place to groom him. I mean, I'd love to see him as a Texan if it would work, but I think a place like a Seattle would be better for him when you can sit behind Geno and he could learn. He's he's probably a couple years away. But listen, stop playing. If Bryce Young goes at 1, which is what we all think, just get CJ Stroud. And whatever the talk is about CJ and Willie, maybe you can help me understand this better. I don't know how a guy who is thought to be the number 1 or number 2 best quarterback in the draft starts to drop when he hadn't played 1 game. So I don't know if people are just playing, but don't fool around and let the Colts get CJ Stroud because they will get your quarterback.
Will, what do you say?
Yeah, I think it's Lion season, and we all know
it is.
It's Lion season. 2 weeks before the draft. Don't believe what you hear, and that's just it. I believe what I heard yesterday from a colleague is Tennessee at 3. Mike Vrabel connect the Buckeye dots. The Buckeye leaves. Ryan Day and Mike Vrabel are super close, extremely close, and the word on the street is that Mike Vrabel. I don't believe this. But Mike Vrabel was behind the slander of C.J. Stroud to hopefully get him to drop to 3, where Tennessee could then trade up to 3 and draft C.J. Stroud. I don't believe it because Mike Vrabel's not that guy to do it to a Buckeye, just to be completely transparent. He's not going to do that to that kid because he knows the relationship that he has with Ryan Day. He knows the relationship he has with C.J. Now, that being said, as you said, Kim, don't sleep. So if Tennessee gets to 3, and CJ Stroud is on the board, they will take him. They will absolutely take him.
Andy, for you first. No, Will. For you, in McShay's mock draft, he has them, the Texans taking a defensive player 2, but then 3, 4, and 5. 3, CJ Stroud via trade. 4, Will Levis. 5, Anthony Richardson. So that'd be 3 quarterbacks gone. Well, 4 in the first 5, but Will at 12, he's got your receiver going to the Texans, Jackson.
Yep. Did we say that Sunday?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the battery. I mean, if it's 2 and 12, CJ at 2, Smith and Jigba at 12, I think that's a combo that could do the Texas well for a decade.
But that's not the scenario. From McShay.
I know.
Well, he's got defense at 2 and Smith Jigba at 12.
I know.
See, that's what doesn't make sense. If you don't, exactly. If you don't know what Will alluded to, if you take Jackson Smith at 12 and you don't take the quarterback, what's the point? You want Davis Mills and Case Keenum throwing him the ball for this past season?
Clayton Tune, man. I'm telling you, Clayton Tune.
Listen,
fourth round.
We just talked about Anthony Richardson, who I agree. I think he's a long term. He's not going to be ready to be a day 1 starter, in my opinion. Anyone outside of those top 4, they certainly, as heck, are not going to be ready to be day 1 starters. So I don't care if they take Clayton Tune, which would be way, way past later in the draft, or anyone else that's not those 4 quarterbacks. No, that's you can't. That's not the solution. And if you're not going to take a quarterback at number 2, you certainly, I don't think any of the top 4 will be available at 12. And you're basically punting on drafting a quarterback till next season, or you're going to get a quarterback in another fashion, meaning a trade. In my opinion.
Here, let me throw this in. My only, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Andy, I'm sorry. My only other way of seeing this make sense, and I've never heard it, right? So it's not like, is that something? This isn't out there. This is just a Kim Davis thing. The only way that I'm okay with him not getting a quarterback at 2 is because you're doing a deal to get Lamar Jackson. Other than that, I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that would make sense to me. And if that's not what you're doing, and I haven't heard anything about that, get a quarterback and stop playing. Get a quarterback.
Tony M agrees with y'all. just get the damn QB. Okay. Well, I mean, at 2, Kim, you first. Who should the Texans draft at 2?
CJ Stroud.
Andy, who should the Texans draft at 2?
Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, whichever one is not available, and everyone
Well,
says
if Bryce Young
Young's
is there,
going
take
one.
Bryce. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Bryce is there, you take Bryce. But if he's not, you take CJ Stroud.
Will?
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young. I'm call me naive, but until I see the card for Carolina, I'm naive enough to believe they're taking CJ.
Okay. All right.
But
Let's
that's
see.
fair, Willie. And is it because of their head coach and because of who he's typically looked at, the kind of player he was as a quarterback? Because that's what I thought that was possible.
Mm-hmm,
But
that, and I know they had a extremely close visit when they came to Carolina, when they came to Columbus for his pro day. They brought everybody. They brought the OC, Josh McCown, the almost head coach of the Texans, now the quarterback coach of the quarterback coach of the Panthers. They brought David Tepper and Mrs. Tepper. They brought everyone to Columbus, and they had I know they went to Alabama the next day as well, but I do know they had a very, very great visit with CJ, and they also the same when they went to Carolina, when he went to Charlotte. So I'm still not convinced they're not taking him one. They share the same agent, Bryce and CJ, which is unique in and of itself. David Muguleta, and a lot was made. Well, Bryce canceled his visits. Well, I'm sure the agent has some type of. I think again, he's letting the chatter commence and letting people talk, knowing the whole time what exactly the situation is. But yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, that too, I think it's Bryce Young with CJ going one.
And letting everybody know who's tuning in, if you're still looking for AJ on Thursdays, stop. It's me, Andy, Will, Kim today on the lunch break on Thursdays, because Thursdays now, hopefully going forward for a while, is the Houston Roundball Review Takeover on Thursdays on the lunch break, powered by JM&E, catching it on the BS3 network on Roku. Kim, Ralph Cooper, who we've known for quite a while, won't say how long, but quite a while, is adamant the Texans should draft Will Anderson at 2. What say you?
I say he's wrong.
Why? How do you really feel about that, Kim? How do you really feel?
Listen, anything outside of a quarterback at 2, I'm not hearing it with this team, right?
Uh-oh.
No, she cut off.
Just lost it. All right. Well, anybody want to take that? Why not Will Anderson at 2?
They need a quarterback. And for all those that say, well, they can punt on the quarterback this year and come back with Caleb Williams next year. Well, you thought you had the number 1 pick this year, and how'd that work out? So play around if you want to. But they need a quarterback.
Yeah, you can't make assumptions looking ahead to next season because you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to play out. And when it comes to Will Anderson specifically, again, going back to what I said earlier, that move comes across as either we don't like any of the quarterbacks, we're above taking a quarterback. It comes across as, the phrase I've used a lot is, we're smarter than everyone else, which, if they believe that, go ahead. But then there's a lot of pressure, especially, like I said, with Indianapolis lurking at 4, potentially Tennessee lurking and trading up to 3, where it'll come back and bite you if you're wrong. And if you're wrong, you're set back for years, because now you're trying to catch up to the Colts or potentially the Titans, with Jacksonville already having the franchise quarterback as well.
Okay, Kim, go ahead and finish up your thought.
So yeah, I guess I was just speaking too strongly about that the internet gods had to just make me take it down a notch. So listen, this team took Mario Williams as the top pick. How much did he change them as a team? They took Jadeveon Clowney, who I like Jadeveon Clowney a lot. But you need a quarterback, right? You need a quarterback. Get him now. What are you waiting for? And you can get some of these defensive players later. No, you might not be able to get, the ones that you would take it to. But who's going to change your team the most, right? Like I said, is it, when the Cleveland Browns passed on Mahomes and they passed on Deshaun Watson. What they have to end up ultimately doing? Getting Deshaun Watson. Like their
Right.
defensive players are important, but this is a quarterback-driven league now more than it has ever been. And you've got to have a quarterback if you're going to compete. And here's the other thing, guys. I'm in those stadiums every home game for the Texans. It's freezing in there. You know why? Because there's about 12 of us in the building. And they have to turn the AC on for the whole building. My point is not that I should not be uncomfortable. They need to get fans back engaged. And not that you make a pick just for fans. However, if you're losing your fan base, which is what they've been doing over the past few years, you need to show them that you are really committed to winning. And going into camp with Case Keenum and Davis Mills, and I forget the third guy on the roster, is not going to do it. It's just not.
So everyone agrees that the Texans should draft a franchise quarterback at 2, not a
Absolutely.
quarterback who's 2 years away from maybe being 2 years away to being a starter in the NFL. Is that what I'm hearing?
Listen, I think they should draft whichever one's available, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, right? But even if they drafted Anthony Richardson, I'm better with them doing that than not taking a franchise quarterback, because at least you're getting a quarterback that you know can be the future. I don't know that you got to take Richardson at 2. I'm not really sure about that, but they need to get a quarterback at 2, and they need to get a quarterback that they know they can build around. And I mean, let me say this: even if they had Bryce Young at 1, if they were able to get Bryce Young, they're not going to be a great team this year, right? They're not going to be vying for a playoff spot. I don't believe that. So I'm not saying this is the year you've got to get to the playoffs and let's start looking for a championship, but you've got to start. They've started this rebuild over now the last 3 years, every year. At some point, you've got to move forward into the rebuild and stop starting over.
Well, you cover the Cleveland Browns. What are the Browns going to do
tonight?
In the draft overall?
Oh, I say tonight they're watching with us because the 12th pick is in Houston.
Right, it's going to the Texans. Yep.
But they don't pick until 74. The first round pick is in Houston for Deshaun Watson. They traded their second round pick, number 42, 2 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, to the New York Jets for wide receiver Elijah Moore. And then the Jets in turn took that pick and moved it to Green Bay for a quarterback yesterday. We can't say that name on the lunch break. It's the quarterback.
Right. Yeah. That guy. Yeah.
That guy. But hey, shout out to my brother AJ. I'm following the rules, big bro. I'm following the rules. But yeah, so they don't pick until 73. So they have 8 picks, 2 in the third, 2 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, 6th, and the 7th. AB, General Manager Andrew Barry, his MO is to trade down. He wants to gather picks. So don't be shocked if they don't pick at 74. They trade down to gather more picks later in the draft. But so that's where they are right now. They picked late Friday night at 74 for the first time for now.
Kim and Andy, the Texans have 12 picks in this draft.
Yep.
Do you see them trading down and getting more picks because they still have a lot of needs and a lot of holes to fill?
They have a lot of holes to fill. What I do know is that Nick Caserio is a man who does a lot of what I call busy work. So I would not be surprised if there's movement. But again, I don't know. 12 picks that's a lot of picks. And the key, here's what I'm most concerned about. They've got to make the right picks. Because you can gather up a bunch of picks. If you're not picking the right people with them, you could have 20 picks in the draft. So 12's plenty. He might move down and try to get some more, but I'm more concerned about who they pick. And there's some people out there that could help this team. I mean, they've made some moves in the offseason in terms of free agency. They didn't get any Pro Bowlers. They got a few guys who are a little bit older on some one-year deals. So this team still has a lot of needs. And I don't know. But again, I wouldn't be surprised because Nick likes to do a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Andy, what do you say about that? Should they trade down? Will they trade down, in your opinion? Get more picks?
I actually think it could potentially be opposite, like with the number of picks that they have. I could see them packaging some to move up and get, again, kind of like Kim said, the most important thing is making sure you get the right players in the building, ones that you think can come in here. And I'm gonna borrow a phrase, impact. Well, with the text, I don't think you can actually say it, but impact winning, right? They're gonna come in here and start that rebuild and start that turnaround when it comes, whether it be culture, when it comes to kind of putting the building blocks in place to whether it be 2-3 years from now, being able to be in a spot where you're competing, or if to borrow a phrase from Tillman Fertitta, move on to phase 2 and quote unquote. But when it comes to tonight or the draft overall, I don't think Houston will use all 12 picks in terms of we're not going to make any movements. We're just going to take 12 players with those picks. They'll be packaged. I could very well see them move up in this draft. And again, at the end of the day, it all matters about who they're bringing in and making sure that those guys are positive impact players.
And a reminder, everybody, you're watching the lunch break Thursdays, the Houston Roundball Review takeover of the lunch break on BS3, on Roku, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Be back in about a minute. Here's a clip from my man Cole Johnson. Cole.
If you're looking for a sports program that gives you the flavor.
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
That pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents.
I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
And we're back. Thank you for watching the lunch break powered by JM&E on the BS3 network. The BS3 network, changing the way you watch TV. If you do not have BS3, go to bs3network.com. We're talking Texans, Browns, NFL draft. Andy, you said you'll be at the Texans watch party.
Yeah, the watch party that they're going to have with fans. So that whoever they take a number 2, and if it definitely is not a quarterback, those fans will make for must-watch reactions. I can guarantee that.
Will you have your camera ready for the fan reaction?
Yep, that's a big reason why I'm going there. That's what they want. They want that reaction.
And Kim, will you be at NRG or will you be at the watch party for the fans?
So I'm going to start at the watch party, and then I'm going to go over to NRG. I'm not sure. I'll probably stay for the second pick and then head to the stadium and work there for the rest of the night, so that at the end of the night I can get the players on Zoom at the stadium and talk to Nick. So, but I do want to see the reaction. I mean, I remember when these fans booed JJ Watt. Y'all remember that? They were not happy about. They were not happy about it, and so fans can be wrong. But I guarantee you, if they do not take a quarterback with the second pick, the fans, I just feel strongly that the fans are not going to be happy with the selection. And not that fans are always right, but tonight, probably will be.
So you'll have your camera ready with the reaction as well?
Absolutely. I will be there.
And will you be texting or calling us if the Texans don't draft the quarterback at 2? Say, yo, what's up?
You already keep your phone on. That's Big Bro say. Keep your phone on.
Keep your phone on.
Yeah.
I know, Will. You'd be like, what? I mean, there have been some moments with this organization. I remember sitting next to my dear friend and brother Max Edison the year that they traded and were able to get Deshaun, because when they announced the trade, he and I looked at each other and we were like, it's about to go down. I mean, there's an excitement about it. A team that you cover, even though you're objective, you still want the team you cover to be successful and productive, and not to just make bonehead decisions. And lately they've done a lot of that. And so it's time to turn the corner. They got the coaching hire right. But if you don't give them the right things to work with,
And Kim, I
you're
was on
spinning your
the
wheels.
I was on the opposite. I was like, no. But it worked out in, I guess, 5 years later. So
Yeah, I just never did understand that, Wooly. I was glad that the Texans got Deshaun, but I was like, why would they? Why would it was Shash? It was
yeah,
Sasha was it?
Sashi Brown.
Yeah, I was like, what? Did Sasha just did Rick Smith a solid on that? What's really going on? But hey,
we'll talk offline.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure how to do this because we aren't supposed to mention his name, the quarterback whose name we shall not mention, but he was traded. Your thoughts on, did it help his former team? Who got the better end of the deal? His former team or his new team? And remember, don't mention his name, but just your thoughts on the trade from either perspective.
So right now, today, I would say that the team he went to, can we say the teams?
Yes.
Just not say his name. Okay. So I think the team he went to, the Jets, right now today, because people are talking about the Jets being a Super Bowl contender. I don't agree with that. Right. I think they need some more pieces offensively, but they wouldn't even be in the conversation had they not traded for this this unnamed quarterback. But I think down the road, it could be the Packers, because the Packers, they got some good pieces. And if Jordan Love is what they think he can be, but if I had to say right now today, I'd have to probably say the Jets in terms of what it looks like. If this quarterback that we're not saying his name, is all in, we never know. Like, he's always about to retire in some dark room or closet or something. He did show up to in New Jersey, and went to meet with the team. So if he participates in OTAs and is around for camp, and, it could be good. But you just never know with that dude, man. So I don't know, but I think right now on paper, it's the Jets.
Andy, what do you say? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. When it comes to that phrase on paper today, April 27th, that we're talking about, it's definitely the Jets, because again, like Kim alluded to, they are in the conversation to be potential Super Bowl contenders, which, I mean, when was the last time we put the New York Jets in that conversation? And for now, that's a win. And that could definitely change, because you don't even have to go far. Just look at last season with the Denver Broncos. All off season, they were kind of penciled in to be in that top of the AFC conversation. And boy, did that not work out at all. So we very well could be sitting here a year from today, and a similar thing could happen to the Jets. I mean, they're kind of if you compare them, they're kind of in a similar position, because when Russell Wilson went to the Broncos, everyone was talking about how great the Broncos defense is. Russell Wilson is that missing piece to take the offense over the hump. Well, the Jets, similar thing. They have that phenomenal defense led by Sauce Gardner, by the way. Shout out to the University of Cincinnati. He torched Houston a little bit when they were in the American, but
numerous times. We digress.
We digress. But it comes down to execution, and now all the eyes are on the offense of the Jets and what that quarterback is able to do and lead from us offensive side, and translate that to wins, because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to. It very well could be, if we have a similar situation to the Broncos, where the Packers are the winners, because not only do they have high picks, if Jordan Love pans out and they have the quarterback, well, then now they have the cap space to build around him and be solid for years to come.
Will, what do you say?
I disagree, and I think it's the Packers, because they took a player they no longer wanted. They no longer wanted him to play for them, and they got a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a sixth-round pick. So from that perspective, I mean, yeah, he'll probably do some things in New York. Absolutely. But from the Packers' perspective, he wasn't going to play for them anymore. So to get what they got for him, And that's why it's amazing to me that the Jets gave up what they did, because it was clear to everybody. Green Bay no longer wanted anything to do with him. So to give up what they got, I was a little shocked.
Fair, and full disclosure, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But the quarterback who we won't name, when I did play fantasy football, led me to a three-peat. And
how long ago was that, Chris?
And put money in my pocket.
It wasn't last season.
No, it wasn't last season. So that shows you how long ago it was when I played fantasy football. But shout out to the Sam Andrews Black Fantasy Football League.
Yeah, Sam Andrews.
Kim was a member of that league too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I retired undefeated because that's another reason. They didn't want to change the rules for competitive balance. And I was like, guys, you're never going to catch me as long as we're freezing 8 players. I'm like, so what 8 players? I won 3 years in a row. I'm freezing 8 players. How y'all gonna beat me? Barring injuries. But I digress on all that. All right. These closing moments of the lunch break here on, I like saying this, BS3 Network on Roku. Going to take one final break and remind everybody, Andy, this is who we owe thanks to, Andy, Kim, and Will, our man here, AJ Jones, because this clip is the original promo for the lunch break.
Are you looking for something to do on your lunch break? Well, there's a show on the BS3 Network that has only 4 words to say to you.
We ready. We ready. We ready for y'all. We ready. We ready.
The Lunch Break with AJ, powered by JM&E. Live weekdays at noon Central.
And yes, you are watching The Lunch Break, powered by JM&E. Thank you, AJ, for trusting us, me, Chris Gardner, Andy Yanez, Willie Gibson, and Kim Davis to take over Thursdays on The Lunch Break on the BS3 Network. Well, and we got about 10 minutes before we close it up.
Mm-hmm.
Knicks eliminated the Cavs last. No. I don't want to talk about that. We might get to the Cavs in a second.
Okay.
Did y'all watch the collapse? And no shade to Jimmy Buckets and his great performance. But my goodness, good grief, Mike Budenholzer, what the hell were you thinking in the first part of the game to waste a challenge 3 minutes into a game, then in the fourth quarter down the stretch to not call timeout, then in overtime, not call timeout twice? Who wants to take shots at Mike or Coach Bud, or let me just do it for the last 10 minutes? Who wants to go first?
Is he still the coach? What time is it? 12:45.
Well, I mean, there you go. Should he still be the coach?
Man, that's. Woo. I don't call for people's jobs. I'm not a fire guy, but man, what were you? Great question. What was he thinking? Explain, please. And then Grayson Allen gets the ball to go. Doesn't get a shot. No, you got to call timeouts and regulation. How about put Brooke Lopez in the game so Jimmy Butler doesn't have a clear shot to the hoop falling down? How about that?
And the sad thing is, and Kim, and y'all share your thoughts in just a second. Brooke was in the game, and he subbed him out.
Yes,
for a shorter player. And I'm like, you need Brooke Lopez to defend the rim, to protect the rim.
And where'd they go?
And where'd they go once Brooke went out of the game?
Straight to the
Come on, bud. Go ahead, Andy, Kim, whoever wants to go first. Go ahead.
I'll take it first. Going not to pile on Bud, but I have never seen that might be the worst execution I've ever seen late game from a professional, certainly from an NBA basketball team, where the timeout. There were so many situations with the timeout, the jump ball, and some of it comes down to the players too with execution. I mean, I know Giannis Antetokounmpo, what he's been able to do the last few years, but goodness, when it was the jump ball, he looked scared. He did not want any part of the ball to go to the free throw line and shoot free throws.
Facts.
The team overall looked shook when Miami came on the run. They tied the game. No one wanted to take that last shot. And in regulation, again, discombobulated. It didn't seem like they were aware of the situation, which, Willie, to your point, Grayson Allen, no shot up. The time literally expired. You didn't even get a chance. And he very well could have had a good shot. He could have at least attempted a floater, in my opinion, but I digress. That's not neither here or there. Ultimately, that goes on the coaching to look that unprepared, to look that discombobulated, to not be aware of the situations, and I don't know if Mike Budenholzer was calling timeout. I don't know if Mike Budenholzer was calling timeout at the end of regulation and he slipped and he fell out of his shoe, or I said something in the sidelines. It looked like he was off, and I think Giannis was the player that was inbounding. Come on, you got to be able to call timeout on this. You got to be able to know in your head you have one timeout left. And when that happened, I looked at the score, at the scoreboard or the visual, the TNT or NBA TV, wherever the game was. Yeah. And I saw they had the one little tick for timeout. I'm like, are they wrong? Are they wrong with that? If they had that, call the timeout. And it just got worse in overtime. And I mean, credit to the Miami Heat, and certainly credit to Jimmy Butler. I know it's kind of become popular, the saying he is him, and he was definitely him in this series. And for the past 3 years, the Miami Heat kind of seem to be, for the most part, the owners of the Milwaukee Bucks. I know Houston Astros fans love to say that about the New York Yankees. I think the Miami Heat are the same with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Kim, what do you say about Bud, and should he be fired? I mean, that was incompetence. I mean, it was negligence. You talk about incompetence. It was negligence. What do you say, Kim?
Yeah, it was awful. I'm not going to fire him. I mean, they did win a championship. I just can't. I mean, last night was bad, and it's always the most recent thing that you see. But I wouldn't fire him. I don't understand what happened last night. You know, they went to the line, 45 times? And they shot 62%? And of course, Giannis looked scared. He didn't want to shoot a free throw. He missed 13.
Yeah.
Like, the free throws alone changed the game.
Sure.
Forget about all the other stuff.
Sure.
The bad decisions. I've never seen a challenge that early in the game, Chris. Like 3 minutes in, you really about to use this challenge right now? Which was kind of like, is this an omen? Is this like what kind of night it's going to be? Because that made me kind of really look kind of side-eye at the television, because I did not understand that. So yeah, it was not his finest hour. We know that he's better than that, because he's had moments where we kind of questioned him in previous years before they won the championship, right? We have questioned him.
I called for his job before they won the chip.
Right. So it is not uncommon that we see him do something bonehead, but last night was next level. I don't know what was going on. I really don't. But no, I probably wouldn't call for him to be fired because he has won. But that's what you get. I mean, you get some, okay, they won a championship, and then you get some ridiculousness. And it's not the first time. So I've just never seen it. It was craziness.
Well, I'm going to add Charles Lee. Leave that franchise. Come to Detroit. Help restore the roar. Restore the pride in the Piston organization. Continue the reloading of the Pistons. You can leave the Bucks, because they're going to start turning over and doing different things, because last night was bad. They looked unprepared. They looked confused. Yeah. They looked lost.
They did.
Drew Holiday, bless you, my man. You are a hell of a defensive player. But Jimmy Butler kicked your behind. He got in your head, was talking smack to you every time he scored a bucket in your face. And then you forgot about team basketball and tried to do one-on-one stuff, which is not your game, my man. So that hurt the offense. It was just bad. It was a bad look for the Bucks, but they're done. Good for the Heat. Better coach. Better prepared team. They played harder. Even the loose ball. Everybody crashed to the floor. Jimmy Butler, looked like a coup, Andy. Drew Holiday did not dive on the floor. Drew's kind of like, well, I guess I want to get on the floor. Nope. Jimmy beat him to the. Come on, man. Y'all about to be eliminated. Just a bad look all around. But Will,
Yep.
Knicks eliminated the Cavs.
Yep.
Your thoughts on that series, and then real quick, everybody's thoughts on the Warriors. Look like the Warriors, the championship Warriors. Last night to close out that win over the Kings, but Cavs Knicks first up. Will.
Expected. And we all know it. The playoffs is about matchups. They're about matchups, and we talked about it a little bit Sunday. The Knicks were just a bad matchup for the Cavs. Knicks won 3 out of 4 in the regular season. Not even close. Well, no, one of them was close in New York. The second meeting in New York went down to the buzzer. They just weren't. They were prepared, and that's the thing that bothers me about. This is why I don't necessarily call for coaches' jobs. J.B. Bickerstaff coached the Cavs to a 51-win season, made it to the playoffs the first time in 5 years, and based on this, people are calling for him to be fired. Oh, he didn't have the team prepared. He made no adjustments. So how about Tom Thibodeau is just a defensive wizard?
Yeah.
And he had his team prepared for everything J.B. Bickerstaff threw out there, coupled with the fact that the Cavs are a young team. Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. Yes, Donovan Mitchell came over from Utah, and even he's only in his 5th year. So they're a young team, and it's levels to this. They made the play-in last year. They have first-round home court advantage this year. They're going to grow. They're going to mature. They're going to use this experience to get better. And they'll be fine, but it was expected. The sun did come up today.
Yep.
In Cleveland, and they'll be fine.
We got about 4 minutes left because we're going to close it out with the Sybil Wilkes segment. This is for each of you, real quick. Ime Udoka, Rockets press conference. He said, among other things, one of the things is youth is not an excuse. That's a great quote. But Will, youth and inexperience, they still matter.
Yeah.
Because unless you go through it, we can tell, I'm going to use Andy as the example because the three of us have been in the media longer than he has. We could tell Andy almost everything we've experienced in this media game. Andy could take it all in, digest it, everything. But until he experiences it for himself, he's not going to know. He's just going to say, well, Chris told me this. Will told me that. Kim's told me this. So it's not necessarily being young is not an excuse. It's reality.
Right.
I mean, unless you live it and go through it, all of us have to learn the process about being professional, about what it takes to win, about what it takes to lose, all those things. So it's a great soundbite. And I know what he's meant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because as a coach, you got to get your players prepared. And preparation is key and it's important. Ime can tell the guys over and over and over. But until they experience it come playoff time, because at some point, the Rockets will return to the playoffs, Kim, before we die.
Sure hope so.
But until they do.
On to phase 2.
Yeah. Phase 2, the winning phase. Until they do.
Yeah, whatever that meant. That was crazy.
They're not going to know until they experience it directly in the playoffs. Your thoughts on that real quick. And then, well, first, Kim, your thoughts real quickly, and how can folks find you on social media?
So that stood out to me that when he said it, I looked at Tillman, who kind of lit up when he said it. And I believe it's not an excuse to not put in the work, but it does make a difference, right? Because you can't teach experience. You have to gain experience by going through it. So I think it's a good hire. I will be curious to see what Raphael does with the roster. And if he can get out of the way and let, he may do what he does, I think they would be headed in the right direction. And whatever those phases are, Tillman was talking about, I guess we'll get into that. You can follow me on Twitter at Kim Y Davis. It's on the screen, and then you'll find out all the stuff I have going on. I do Chalk Talk Live every Tuesday on every possible platform, and you can find it on also wherever you get your podcast at Chalk Talk with Kim Davis. So I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you for having me.
Andy, you're next.
Yeah, they can find me on Twitter at aonis_5 and just be on the lookout for UH stuff on gallerysports.com, which right now I think I have a UH football fan base contingent that are not happy because I said do not be disrespectful, but I'll try to avoid that smoke real quickly. And as always, exciting times later today because, again, it'll be interesting to see what the Texans do with that number 2 overall pick, how the fans react, and what they do at number 12. Exciting times. Will,
close it out for us.
Thank you as always. You can find me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at WillGibson7. Again, appreciate the opportunity to be with you all.
Each of you, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join me on the lunch break here on Thursday, this Takeover Thursday of the Houston Roundball Review on the lunch break, powered by JM&E. AJ, as always, thank you very much for trusting me and us to take your show and share our thoughts and insights with the audience. You can watch the show on the BS3 Network on Roku, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. I'm Chris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Twitter, find me at the HR Review, HoustonRoundballReview.com, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube. Roundball Review been around longer than Andy Yanez has. Since 1994, the Houston Roundball Review, local name, global perspective. And we're going to close it out with this from the Queen, Sybil Wilkes. Everybody take care.
All right.
It's Sybil Wilkes with what you need to know. Today is Thursday, April 27, 2023. Number 1, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts turned down an invitation to testify before Congress following a series of reports about the questionable ethical actions of members of the High Court, including actions by Justice Clarence Thomas and Justice Neil Gorsuch. Committee Chair Senator Richard Durbin announced the hearing will take place with or without the Chief Justice. Senator Durbin announced plans to hold a hearing May 2nd to examine what he called common sense proposals to hold Supreme Court justices to the same ethical standards as the rest of the federal judiciary. Number 2, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said he and Chinese leader Xi Jinping had a long and meaningful phone conversation Wednesday, their first known contact since Russia invaded Ukraine more than a year ago. It comes 2 months after Beijing, which has long been aligned with Russia, said it wanted to act as a mediator in the conflict, and after Xi visited Moscow last month. In China, the phone call was reported by state media, with China Central Television saying Beijing intends to send an envoy to Kyiv to discuss a political settlement for the war. Number 3, oral cancer, also called mouth cancer, can affect the lips, gums, roof, or floor of the mouth, gums, or tongue. There are many types, but early detection is key to improving survival rates, especially in Black men who are at the highest risk of developing oral cancers. April, did you know, is Oral Cancer Awareness Month. So go to the What You Need to Know newsletter to take a closer look at various mouth cancers and how it affects ethnic groups like African Americans. Number 4, students, alumni, and members of Yale University's Divinity School have been pushing for decades to grant a degree for the school's first 2 Black students. April 24th, University President Peter Salovey has announced the Board of Trustees voted to issue Reverend James W.C. Pennington and Reverend Alexander Crummell posthumous honorary master's degrees. Pennington and Crummell studied theology at the Ivy League school during the 1830s and 1840s, respectively, but were denied various privileges of their white counterparts, including participation in class discussions, borrowing books from the library, and they weren't allowed to receive their degree. Number 5, Georgia is creating a $750,000 grant program to support mental health programs for military service members, veterans, and their families through a law signed by Governor Brian Kemp. Kemp told a group of lawmakers and veterans the effort is modeled after the Cohen Family Clinic, which provides free services to veterans and their families with issues related to post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety. To win a grant, an applicant must demonstrate that it uses evidence-based practices, trains staff members to understand the military, and connects clients to other mental health services upon discharge. Here's your daily inspiration from Yogi's Jewels. Remaining calm is the best antidote to stress and anxiety. I'm calm. Join me today live on YouTube and Facebook at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, as mental wellness contributor Aprilette Russell and I discuss today's top headlines and more. Thank you to our What You Need to Know partners, the American Heart Association and